Random gifts from your kids rule. Hey there, folks. I am the Mighty Plantain, and I was planning on wearing a different shirt tonight, but daughter just came home from a trip to the mall, and can't beat that, right? Perfect. Hey, anyway, tonight we are looking at Harpoon's Dunkin Box of Beer. This is another new pack this year, and not only do they have 3 new beers in here, but they have done a reformulation of the original Dunkin Pumpkin, which mixed thoughts on that. I thought it was fine the way it was. Hopefully they didn't go too crazy with the change in the recipe. But we also have Cold Brew, Hazelnut, and Coffee Roll. We're going to do them in a different order though. I'm going to do Hazelnut first, then Coffee Roll, and then Cold Brew. I'm assuming that the Cold Brew is going to be the most bitter of the 4, and therefore have flavor elements that might overwhelm some of the others, similar to how a hoppy beer would overwhelm your palate. So that's what we're doing. Regular viewers can probably skip the next couple of minutes. I'm going to tell you stuff you already know. If you don't already know, I'm a big fan of Harpoon. For one thing, they have an ESOP set up. It's an employee stock ownership program. It's a great way to put employee ownership into place. Basically, what it means is when the company does well, your retirement fund does well. And it's an awesome setup. It doesn't necessarily demand that these companies act more ethically or more responsibly towards people than other companies do, but they actually tend to. So much so that, in fact, when Clown Shoes Brewing, one of my other favorite breweries, was looking to sell, they needed to sell, and they actively marketed themselves to employee-owned breweries, which Harpoon happened to be in the general vicinity. So they combined forces, so to speak, and now Clown Shoes has been brought into the fold, and they're actually still operating slightly independently, and it has done nothing to diminish their creative spirit. I mean, they're still producing off-the-wall shit there that is really good. So anyway, that's my little soapbox speech. Support employee-owned companies. It's definitely worth it. Anyway, on to the beers. Dunkin Pumpkin is first. And like I said, I don't know why they felt the need to change this one up, but we'll see how it is. Actually, it looks kind of orange as I'm pouring it out. Part of that might just be the visual of the label itself. It's a little cloudy, like a coffee would be. Like a coffee would be. No, coffee shouldn't be cloudy. Coffee should be clear and black. But anyway, yeah, I think I got some sediment at the very bottom of that. It poured out fairly light, but there was some dark, almost clumpy looking stuff. I don't know. But it's definitely got an orangish hue down here, but it does become more brownish, a lighter brown up in here, like a heavily creamed coffee. Fairly effervescent, quite cloudy, and like I said, the darker part seems to be spreading. The color's kind of evening out as I go. Maybe roll the can before opening it. Roll the can gently before opening it to see if it takes on a different color profile if you do that. Without the light directly on it, it does have a more even color with the light coming from external versus up through the middle. So definitely has a heavy pumpkin aroma to it. Maybe a hint of coffee bitterness underneath there, but definitely a gourdy, pumpkin-y aroma, like a wet pumpkin-y aroma. Freshly detopified pumpkin. If you're thinking of the smell that comes out when you take the top off and detopified, I don't know where I came up with that one. I promise I have not had anything to drink so far tonight, folks. Yeah, slight hint of coffee there. All right. It's interesting. It's got a nice medium mouthfeel to it, so there's some body. The coffee aspect is stronger in the flavor than it was in the aroma. Up front, it's like a heavy, bitter coffee flavor, and the pumpkin kind of comes in midway. Again, it's that wet, pulpy, pumpkin-y flavor. Not a lot of any sort of spice. Maybe a hint of nutmeg or something in there. Not quite cinnamon, but some pumpkin complementary spice. But not too overwhelming. It's mostly coffee and pumpkin. Now, it's been probably a year since I've had a Dunkin Pumpkin, but I swear it had less coffee flavor and more pumpkin flavor before. Pardon. I think this year that might have been part of the change of the recipe, is that it's more coffee forward. I would say by the time you get going, it's kind of an even mix of coffee and pumpkin versus, like I said, in the aroma, it's up front mostly pumpkin with a hint of coffee, and then when you taste it, it's coffee up front with the pumpkin coming in behind, equally as strong, but at this point it's kind of the two flavors just kind of mixing together. And again, that just one slight maybe nutmeg, a hint of a pumpkin complementary spice, but I could be imagining that as well. Anyway, it's coffee and pumpkin. It's kind of a two-trick pony, one-trick pony, whatever. Fucking fruit flies. It got up into like the 60s today in mid-November in Maine. And I still don't know why we got fruit flies. But anyway, there's nothing to do with what we were talking about here. I think I'm also kind of stalling a bit here because I'm not quite sure where to rate this. I want to give it at least a 3.5. On a scale of 1 to 5, 3.5 is fairly above average, because a 2.5 would be average. So I'm at least at a 3.5. I just don't know if I can give it any extra points above and beyond that, given the fact that I'm primarily only picking up on 2 distinct flavors, and it's not quite standing out. But you know what? I think I'm going to push it up to a 4. I've had some coffee beers before with a decent coffee flavor, pumpkin beers, of course, with decent pumpkin flavor, and I've had some beers that meld the two. But this one's doing a really good job of it. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's obviously disappearing fast. I'm going to push this up to the 4 out of 5. Anyway, I'm going to finish this one up, cleanse with some water, and then we're going to hit the hazelnut. I don't know, I think I should do coffee roll before hazelnut. Coffee roll might be sweet and cinnamony. Hazelnut tends to be a little more bitter than cinnamon coffee rolls. Maybe I'll put the coffee roll next, then the hazelnut, and then we'll finish off with the cold brew. Anyway. Yeah, back with the coffee roll in a minute. All right, next up is coffee roll. Now, I really love the Dunkin' Donuts coffee rolls. They used to have them at most locations. I'm pretty sure it was a regular menu item, but you could get like an individual donut for 25 cents or a coffee roll or other premium pastry for 35 cents. Yes, showing my age here. And the coffee rolls were always good, but there was one place, and I don't think it was directly in Wenham, Mass. I think it was next door in Beverly, Mass. When I was down going to school in Wenham for a little while, my buddies and I would swing by this one Dunkin', and they had the coffee roll, but it had chocolate icing on it, and it was so fucking good. Oh my god. I wish the local places would bring it back. Oh, those coffee rolls. Anyway. Yeah. Gonna make myself hungry. So I didn't get a really good head on that one. did a decent job on the first one, I think. More effervescent. This one's got a slightly lighter color to it. Still a hint of an orangish color. And again, I could just be imagining some of that based on the fact that the labels are all nice and orange with the Dunkin logo. But it's more yellow down here, but it does get towards a darker orangish brown up towards the top where the beer gets thicker in the glass. Like I said, slightly effervescent. Still pretty cloudy. Almost neutral aroma on that one. I'm not getting much. General beeriness. Maybe a hint of cinnamon. Sorry, I'm trying to crack the neck there. Maybe a slight hint of cinnamon there, but just a general light beeriness. Definitely has a much lighter aroma than I would have expected given the color. Medium light mouthfeel. Ooh, there's definitely cinnamon there. I think they overdid it on the cinnamon. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely cinnamon there. It tastes slightly like coffee. There's maybe a hint of sweetness, but if you've, as a kid, your mom made cinnamon, maybe this didn't happen to everybody, but anyway, when your mom made cinnamon toast, of course, it was cinnamon and sugar on there. So your thoughts are, given that and all other cinnamony things like cinnamon rolls, you think that cinnamon is a sweet flavor. So one day you get into the spice cabinet and you're like, oh boy, it's just like taking a spoonful of sugar. You just take a spoonful of fucking cinnamon and it's god-awful, isn't it? I'm getting a bit of that in this beer, and this is not working for me. Yeah, just a general light beeriness, maybe a slight hint of breadiness, but overwhelmingly I'm just getting a cloyingly unsweet cinnamon flavor, which some people might like, but it's not working for me, especially not in this beer. I just keep going back to it, trying to give it a chance to change up, but it's just not working. I gotta hit this one with a 2 out of 5, folks. It's not undrinkable, but it's just not turning out to be a pleasant experience for me, and I'm not enjoying it. I don't hate it. I probably am not going to dump it, but I'm just not liking it. So I'm going to either dump a portion of this or finish it up really fast, and we're going to move on to the hazelnut. All right, next up, hazelnut. Why did I do it like that? I don't know. Whatever. Yellow label. On this one, I don't know why they change up the colors on these. I have managed to get my hands on pretty much all of the Dunkin collaborations with Harpoon. I think the only one I missed out on was possibly the second one they did. It was like a blonde, some kind of blonde beer, blonde lager or blonde ale. I don't remember. But other than that, I've managed to get them all, which is pretty cool. Because I remember when they first were doing the Dunkin', I don't think maybe the first one was a Dunkin Pumpkin, but it was basically the first Harpoon and Dunkin collab, and everybody was excited about it, and I didn't realize, and I don't think anybody did, that they were going to be like a regular thing, that we were going to get all these different beers. Again, really excited about the fact that we got 3 new beers in this pack, even though so far one of them was a dud for me. But this is a much hazier, cloudier than the other two. Slightly yellow down here. And it's got a lighter yellowish orange, still that orange color. And like I said, it could all be in my head. I don't know. but a lighter yellowish orange color, like a deep dark ruddy sunset up here in the thicker part of the glass. Also slightly effervescent, although less effervescent than the other two. Not that we're comparing the beers directly to each other, we're basically just kind of going over the characteristics of each, but as I'm doing a mixed pack, I can't help but compare them. So, there's definitely a hazelnut aroma to that, and a coffee aroma as well. Let's hope that they didn't overdo it like they did with the coffee roll. Yeah, just a general hazelnut coffee aroma. Oh, yes, they just redeemed themselves on this one. Yeah, it's like a less sweet version of Nutella with coffee, and it's good. It's very well put together. Like I said, not much sweetness there, but just a hint of it, enough to complement that hazelnut. A nice darker than it looks flavor of coffee, like a really well roasted coffee, possibly assisted by some darker malts, but I would expect the beer itself to be a darker color if there were some darker malts in there. But again, roasting the malts will get you coffee flavors and chocolate flavors and possibly even some nutty hazelnut flavors. But whatever's in here, it's complementing that hazelnut flavor very well, and the hazelnut is complementing it as well. It's really well balanced in terms of the two different flavors that are in there, and it's neither one's overwhelming, neither one's overpowering. That is a smooth, easy to drink beer. I mean, maybe it's picking up some extra points based on the fact that it's coming on the tail of the coffee roll that I didn't enjoy, but I'm throwing a 5 out of 5 at this one. I didn't quite get that wow reaction, but the beer itself has the two primary flavors that you're expecting from it, and they are perfectly balanced and perfectly complementary. Plus, I'm trying to think of any. I've had plenty of nutty beers, but not necessarily a specifically hazelnut coffee beer. And in terms of a hazelnut coffee beer, even if I have had another one, it wasn't memorable enough for me to be able to compare it in my mind to this one. So that makes it stand out as a unique flavor combo for me. Yeah, that's good. That is good. That is a 5 out of 5. And I don't tend to gravitate towards hazelnut anything. I usually keep Nutella in the cabinets here, but it's mostly for the kid. I don't use it at all. They're one of the last nuts I go for in a mixed nut can, but this works. Ferrero Rocher. I do like those. Anyway, I'm going to finish this one up, and we will move on to the Dunkin Cold Brew beer. All right, last up is the Dunkin Cold Brew. Now, I have seen some other cold brew coffee beers before. They're usually quite dark, quite roasty, and quite bitter, which is why we saved this one for last. Hoppy beers tend to be very bitter, and they can wreck your palate faster than anything else. This is a different kind of hoppiness. Pardon, can just as easily wreck your palate, I think, based on my experience with other coffee beers, and that is definitely dark. Fairly effervescent, got a decent head on it. There is very little light coming through down here, even down where the light is the strongest, and almost none coming through up top. That is a dark, dark brown beer, and I say brown, not black, because down here where there is some light coming through, it is a brownish color. Also, the head's got a brownish tint to it, which tells me that if you were to thin this out and pour it, into a thinner glass, it would actually be brown versus a dark black. And there's a difference between the two, believe it or not. Another oddly neutral aroma. I was expecting a very roasty coffee aroma coming off of that, but it's just a slight hint of roastiness. Medium heavy mouthfeel. Dark, heavy coffee flavor. It's almost too much. Like if you've ever had the free coffee at work that's been sitting on the burner all day long, right before it reaches the point where there's no moisture left and it's just kind of sludge in the bottom, that's the kind of dark roasted coffee flavor I'm getting from this. And I don't mind that. I'm okay with it. That boiled down concentrated coffee has got all the kick I need to get through the rest of the day.
He's not a coffee drinker.
Not really, no. But when I do, I drink it black.
You never drink it.
When I do, rarely.
I've never seen you drink it.
Exactly. But I do prefer it black, and I do like the cold brew because it is that darker, heavier, bitter flavor. This is good. It's solid. There's a slight aftertaste. Acerbic? Is that the word? No, acerbic isn't a flavor. Acerbic is more of a personality trait. But there is that odd aftertaste that you sometimes get from a heavy, dark coffee. And I'm getting hints of that in this beer. It's not too bad, though. That's another 3.5 out of 5. It's a decent, dark, roasted, bitter, coffee-flavored beer. It's kind of a one-trick pony, though. But I got nothing bad to say about it either. So that's where I'm at with these. We got one winner, 2 decent beers, and one that was actually a loser, which I'm surprised by. Wasn't expecting that. Anyway, that's just what I have to say about them. All things being subjective in terms of beer or coffee taste. Hit me up down below in the comments or the email link. Love to hear what you have to say about any of these beers or the pack as a whole. Whew, pardon. While you're at it, don't forget to like and share the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Till next time, folks. Cheers. And peace among worlds, bitches. I wish I had a set of fake antenna going. That would have just added to it. It would have been perfect. Anyway.